Imagine a prehistoric monster born millions of years ago who ruled the entire earth like a god. Now imagine that the earth itself rejects him and the ground opens up, sending this monster to the deepest place that exists, hell. Now imagine that instead of suffering down there, this monster defeats every layer, every demon, every god, and walks out the other side stronger than he went in. This is Godzilla in Hell, one of the most insane and underestimated versions in comics. And today we are going to throw him into the Dragon Ball universe to find out how far he would realistically go. If you are a Godzilla fan, do not close the video thinking he will be humiliated, and if you are a Dragon Ball fan, do not close it thinking you already know the result, because I guarantee you, this analysis will surprise you more than you imagine. Before anything else, we need to understand exactly who this Godzilla is and why he is not just a big lizard that breathes fire. The miniseries Godzilla in Hell from IDW Comics tells the story of a Godzilla who falls into the depths of hell and must cross every layer down to the absolute bottom. When he falls, we are talking about a drop that goes from the surface of the earth all the way to the core and beyond, a distance of more than 6,000 kilometers. At 25,000 tons of weight, he hits the floor of hell like a living nuclear bomb, with an energy equivalent to 126 trillion joules, the same as 30 tons of dynamite exploding at once. And that is just his arrival. He has not even started fighting yet. The hell of IDW is described as infinite in size, a realm that only expands as you descend, and Godzilla keeps going down and destroying everything in his path. On the first layer, he encounters a monster made of radioactive flesh and eliminates it with a single attack. Then he faces a shadow copy of himself, a version of his own atrocities, and destroys it from the inside with an atomic breath. He defeats Rodan, King Ghidorah, and other classic enemies that hell threw against him. Each layer was a test, and Godzilla passed all of them with brutality. But the real feats start when Godzilla meets the god of IDW. Yes, literally God, the being that created the entire universe of this cosmology. Godzilla was fighting against Space Godzilla, amplified by Satan, and when God appears and orders Godzilla to serve him, saying that he must now fight for his army of peace, Godzilla does something surprising. He fires his atomic breath and defeats God in a single blow. Yes, the being that created the IDW universe was defeated in a single attack. After that, Godzilla ate all the angels and continued descending. And when he reaches the final layer of hell, he finds something even bigger. At the top of a mountain stands the creator of the entire IDW multiverse, the being who forged hell itself and everything that exists. Godzilla tries to fire his atomic breath, but does not have enough energy. He starts climbing the mountain, is hit by an avalanche, and demons devour his flesh until only bone remains. But this monster does not die. Godzilla possesses the demons, makes them fuse into one body, recovers his energy, and unleashes an explosion from his entire body against the mountain. The creator and the top of the mountain are erased from existence. Godzilla rises to the top as the strongest being alive or dead. After defeating God, Godzilla gained that divine purple shield, what fans call Divine Godzilla, and this is the Godzilla that carries the entire IDW cosmology on his back. Now fans scale him to relevant outer-versal levels, and you will understand this. But does this hold up when we analyze it honestly? Because having impressive feats inside your own cosmology is one thing. Competing with the exponential scaling of Dragon Ball is something completely different, and that is exactly what we are going to test now. We are going to put this monster face to face with the power levels of Dragon Ball, starting from the bottom and going up to discover where exactly the king of the monsters stops advancing, or if he does not stop. Now that you know what Godzilla in Hell is capable of doing, let us throw him into the Dragon Ball universe and start climbing the scale. And to be fair to both fan bases, we are going to start from the bottom at the first levels and rise progressively until we find the ceiling of this monster, or not, starting with classic Dragon Ball. The warriors of this phase operate on a scale of destruction that goes from mountains to the moon. Everyone remembers when Master Roshi destroyed the moon with a Kamehameha. Piccolo Daimao destroyed an entire city with a single blow, and Kid Goku already had extreme speed, a superhuman level to the point of dodging lasers. But let us be honest, Godzilla in Hell would not have the slightest problem here. We are talking about a monster that, just by falling into hell, generated the equivalent of 30 tons of dynamite from the impact alone. His atomic breath destroyed monsters in a single blow, and he crossed infinite layers of a supernatural realm. The warriors of classic Dragon Ball simply do not have enough destructive power to hurt this beast. Godzilla would walk through this entire phase without feeling a thing. Here things start to get interesting. Raditz, with a power level of 1500, was already tanking attacks far superior to what destroyed the moon in classic Dragon Ball. Nappa, with a power level of 4000, vaporized a city with 2 fingers, and Vegeta, at 18,000, could destroy planets with ease. The thing here is that Godzilla in Hell was operating on planetary scales as well. His clash with Space Godzilla generated an explosion that swallowed an entire planet and destroyed its core. So in terms of raw destructive power, Godzilla competes with the Vegeta of this saga, but there is a crucial detail. In Dragon Ball, when someone is significantly stronger, the speed difference also becomes absurd. Raditz already dodged attacks at the speed of light, and if you do not believe it, just compare the power of Master Roshi, who destroyed the moon, with the Makenko Sappo of Piccolo, which Raditz managed to dodge at the speed of light. But I demonstrate this better in other videos where I talk about the speed of Dragon Ball, so follow the channel here. Vegeta operates much above that. The thing is that Godzilla in Hell also operates on a planetary scale. His clash with Space Godzilla generated an explosion that swallowed an entire planet, and according to one of the writers, this explosion had a radius of 1 million kilometers, which places this feat at the level of destroying dwarf stars at minimum. Some more detailed calculations take this up to the level of large stars, so in raw destructive power, Godzilla not only competes with the Vegeta of this saga, but possibly surpasses him. And with the cosmological speed we discussed, he would not stand still taking hits, because the speed scaling of Godzilla in Hell does not come from visual feats, but from the cosmology. This monster crosses between realms that are confirmed to be infinite in size. If you are moving between infinite locations, at minimum your speed is infinite. We will discuss this further ahead, with a bit more criteria. When we consider the higher realms of IDW, they exist beyond conventional time, and the speed formula simply breaks. Distance divided by time does not work when time does not exist in the same way. This places Godzilla in Hell at possibly immeasurable speed, so no, he could not be speed blitzed easily as many think. And keep this information because it will be crucial later. In the Frieza saga, things start to heat up. Frieza, with 120 million power, destroyed planets with one finger, and Super Saiyan Goku operated at 150 million. That was his power. Here the destructive power itself already surpasses direct planetary feats from Godzilla, for example. But remember that his explosion with Space Godzilla potentially destroyed an entire realm where they were, which possibly was its own universal space-time. If we interpret it that way, we are talking about a universal feat, which would place Godzilla competing with characters well above Frieza. The thing is that in Dragon Ball, every jump in power is exponential. We call this power creep. Cell Perfect threatened to destroy the solar system. Majin Buu tore through dimensions with screams and had regeneration that rivaled Godzilla's own. Buu also absorbed opponents and destroyed the fabric of space-time with brute force. They would be duels of two almost immortal monsters. But up to here, if we accept Godzilla's scaling as universal, he can compete. But did you notice the pattern? The more we go up in Dragon Ball, the more we depend on which interpretation we use for Godzilla. In the conservative one, he could even stop early, and that is exactly where the real debate lies, because Godzilla fans do not stop at the planetary or universal level. They scale using the entire IDW structure, the Megaverse, the connections with Dungeons and Dragons, and cosmologies that go much further. Whether this holds up or not against the insane scaling of Dragon Ball Super is what we are going to break down in the next part, and believe me, that is where this discussion gets really interesting. Now is when the joke ends and the real analysis begins, because here we compare brute strength, speed, and isolated feats. But when two fictional universes collide at this level, what decides everything is the cosmology. I have already analyzed many characters here. You know that most of the time, even the Dragon Ball characters end up losing, because it always comes down to a battle of cosmology, dimensions, that kind of thing. So let us put both on the table and be brutally honest about what each one offers. On Godzilla in Hell's side, the cosmology of EDW works like this. Each layer of Hell is its own dimension, infinite in size and with its own space-time. There are more than 27 confirmed dimensions just in Hell. Heaven wars against Hell on equal terms, so it has at least the same power. That already gives us at minimum 54 universes, each going beyond. IDW has infinite timelines, infinite worlds, and infinite dimensions, which by default places the cosmology at Multiversal Plus. These names can be a bit confusing, but you just need to understand it goes from planetary level, solar system, galaxies, universes, multiverses, and on top of that exists the Megaverse, which connects all the IDW franchises into a larger space, including Transformers, Power Rangers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and even Dungeons and Dragons. In the series Godzilla Rage Across Time, it is revealed that every Godzilla of IDW comes from a true form that exists beyond space, time, and the entire physical universe. This is objectively a fifth-dimensional space at minimum, and when the author explained in detail how the cosmology of Heaven and Hell works, he said that this true form is contained inside a universe that, in turn, exists inside a larger world of universes, which is more than infinitely superior to the realm itself. This places Heaven and Hell in a space infinitely above infinite, in the fifth dimension, probably sixth dimension, and Godzilla in Hell transcended all of that with his power-ups. That is, his power increases. Now, on Dragon Ball's side, the world of the living is infinite and contains hyperspaces that operate on extra spatial axes, which already places it in the fifth dimension. The other world transcends the dimensionality that humans can perceive, has no concept of time, is metaphysical and not corporeal. Inside the other world, there are three realms that transcend each other in hierarchy, and above that, the realm of the Kais. The world of the void, where the tournament of power happened, is even more durable than all of that and has its own space-time distortion. Characters like Goku and Jiren move and fight in those spaces as if it were normal. The crucial difference is how each cosmology justifies the power of its characters. Godzilla in Hell gains his scaling mainly by defeating entities that created and controlled the IDW cosmology. He defeated God, who created the universe. He defeated the god demon at the top of the mountain, who is the creator of the entire multiverse. He gained the divine shield, which makes him invulnerable inside that cosmology, and it is confirmed that nothing could hurt him in that state. The highest arguments use the connection with the Megaverse and Dungeons & Dragons to scale him as outerversal, since there are versions of Godzilla in Dungeons & Dragons considered god layers, and the cosmology of D&D has gods consistently estimated at that level. In Dragon Ball, the Goku of the first arc of Super was already threatening to destroy the entire cosmological structure with his punches against Beerus, and since then he has become exponentially stronger with Blue, Kaioken, Ultra Instinct, and each new arc pushing the limit even further. The progression of Dragon Ball is continuous and proven by direct combat feats. Each transformation replaces the previous one, and they stack. And here's the point that Godzilla fans need to swallow. Even accepting all the cosmological scaling of IDW, even accepting the connections with the Megaverse, even placing Godzilla in Hell as outerversal, Dragon Ball Super operates on a scale where characters are already at that level and continue going. Beerus has not yet shown his full power. The angels operate above the gods of destruction. The Grand Priest is above the angels, and Zeno erases entire realities just by thinking. But there is a trump card that Godzilla has and that no one in Dragon Ball possesses in the same way. Adaptive growth in real time. Every impossible challenge that Hell threw against him, he simply got stronger and overcame. Hell itself manipulated the laws of existence to try to stop him and failed. And one of the artists confirmed that Godzilla's willpower allows him to grow indefinitely, surpassing any obstacle. This is too relevant to ignore, because in Dragon Ball there is a character that works exactly like that. And in the next and final part, we are going to finally cross all this data and give the definitive verdict on how far the King of the Monsters would really go. The time has come. After analyzing every feat, every cosmology, every argument from both fan bases, we are finally going to answer the question: how far would Godzilla in Hell go in Dragon Ball realistically? And for that, I need to be brutally honest with both sides. First, let us eliminate what we already know. Classic Dragon Ball, the Saiyan saga, and the Frieza saga do not offer any real threat to Godzilla in Hell. His feats of stellar destruction, his crossing of infinite realms, and his absurd immortality place him comfortably above anything in those phases. Cell, who threatened the solar system, and Majin, who tore through dimensions, would be more interesting fights. But considering the realm that Godzilla destroyed in his clash against Space Godzilla, in a feat that is at minimum universal, he would go through all of Dragon Ball Z without really being stopped. He would have difficulty with Buu because of the regeneration, but in pure power, his resistance handles this phase. Now, in Dragon Ball Super, everything changes. And here I need to talk about something that the Godzilla community does not like to hear. The outerversal scaling of Godzilla in Hell does not hold up the way many present it, and I am going to explain why. The main argument is that he defeated the god of IDW, who created the universe and then destroyed the creator of the multiverse. That is true, but defeating the god of a cosmology does not automatically place you at outerversal. The right question is, what is the real level of that cosmology? The Platonic concepts of IDW are presented as the base of the verse, but Platonic concepts are subjective by nature. They are not automatically outerversal. Omnipotence inside a limited cosmology is still limited. A god that is all-powerful inside a system of fifth or sixth dimension has dimensional omnipotence, not absolute omnipotence. The connections with the Megaverse, Dungeons and Dragons, and Power Rangers are indirect arguments. They work on the logic that if IDW connects its franchises, then Godzilla scales to all of them. But the authors themselves admitted that IDW would have the final word on those connections, and that they refer mainly to their own works. The absence of denial is not confirmation, it is a fragile argument to build an entire scaling on. And the statement that the morphing grid is beyond the concept of dimensions came from a leading question made by a fan, and not from a spontaneous declaration by the authors. When you ask a question leading the interviewee to a specific answer, the result does not have the same weight as an organic statement from the work. So where does Godzilla in Hell really scale? Being honest and rigorous, he is multiversal plus. At the top still, in my view, his cosmology has infinite dimensions, infinite timelines, and he transcended heaven and hell, which operate on 5th to 6th dimensional scales. This This is genuinely impressive and places him above 99% of fictional characters, but it is not outerversal. In Dragon Ball Super, Goku, already in the first arc, was threatening to destroy the entire macrocosm, including the other world, which transcends dimensionality. Each arc after that piled power on top of power exponentially. Golden Frieza rivaled Blue, Hip manipulated time, Jiren transcended time with pure strength, and Ultra Instinct operates beyond conscious thought. The growth of Dragon Ball Super is continuous, proven by direct feats, and does not depend on generous interpretation of statements or things outside the work. The adaptive growth of Godzilla is real and impressive. Hell manipulated its own laws to try to stop him and failed. But this growth is reactive. He needs to survive the challenge first to adapt. Against a Dragon Ball Super character, even if Godzilla manages to compete in speed, the window for adaptation simply does not exist. So, the definitive verdict. Godzilla In Hell sweeps through all of Dragon Ball Z without being really challenged. Arriving at Dragon Ball Super, he would legitimately compete in the first arcs, Battle of Gods and Resurrection F, which would be real fights, where the king of the monsters would have concrete chances of victory. But starting from the Tournament of Power, the scaling of Dragon Ball becomes too insane. Jiren, Ultra Instinct Goku, Gods of Destruction, Angels, and Xeno operate on levels that the cosmology of IDW analyzed honestly does not reach. And I say this because yes, you can also do a forced analysis of the cosmology of Dragon Ball, going much further, and I am also not doing that. Even with infinite speed and adaptive growth, when the existential scale gap is too big, keeping up in speed does not mean causing damage. In Dragon Ball, when someone operates in dimensions above you, their attacks simply have no effect, and we are seeing how far Godzilla would go in Dragon Ball. But before any Dragon Ball fan starts celebrating or any Godzilla fan walks away frustrated, stop and think about what was just said. Godzilla In Hell, a comic book character that many people have never heard of, swept through the same saga that has Frieza, Cell, and Majin Buu, and was still able to trade blows with god-level characters in Dragon Ball Super. This is not a defeat, it is just an absurd demonstration of power. The overwhelming majority of fictional characters would not survive even the first arc of Dragon Ball Z. Godzilla In Hell crossed all of that and still went further up. He is without a doubt the most powerful version of the king of the monsters and one of the strongest characters ever written in comics. But Dragon Ball is the gold standard of scaling for a reason. The ladder never stops going up, and at some point it gets too high even for the monster who conquered Hell itself.